Welcome to the Virginia Bar Association's webinar, Contract Review with ChatGPT, Tips and Tricks for the Practitioner. This is being presented by the VBA Committee on Small Firm and Solo Practice. It's a new full standing committee that's was put in place by Ben Leigh when he was president of the VBA. And we are now a full-blown committee, so we're eating at the big kids table. I am Scott Kowalski with PLDR Law, Lynchburg and Danville, and I am chairman of the committee, co-chair with Chris Spittler, who's also on today. This informational session is not associated with MCLE credit, but I think you'll get a lot out of it. I wanted to thank everybody at the VBA who had a lot to do with getting this put together, including Teresa Ray, our committee liaison. She's the Director of Membership and Marketing, Megan Connor, the Director of Events and Programs, and Sonny O'Brien, who's running this for us as an event coordinator. Most especially, I want to thank Gareth Brown of Troxell, Leigh, and Leesburg for agreeing to present this seminar. And he's doing another seminar, which anybody that's a litigator will want to jump on August 20th, another free webinar that Gareth has agreed to put on to help us older folks figure out what the younger kids know how to do. Before we get started, I wanted to go through just a couple quick things. Some brief background on artificial intelligence, or what I call, or some people call, large language models, and the use of those tools by Virginia lawyers. Our committee has worked hard over the last months to come up with a VBA model AI policy, and I think Sonny's going to put that into the chat for us. You can link to that. Garrett's got it up on the screen right now. I am not going to bore you by going through that because we already had a webinar on June 25th to present this, and Steve Brown and Trish Dunlap did a great job of presenting this. Feel free to use this as it is, to modify it in any way and adopt it if you find it useful. This is the first model policy from any bar association in Virginia as far as we're concerned. So please make use of that. I'm not going to review it in detail, but I want to hit on two things really quickly. If you are not a managing member of your firm, partner, shareholder, whatever it is, please do not use any ChatGPT, any artificial intelligence software unless you have it approved by the management of your firm. That's just a note for the wary, to make sure people are not going out on their own and going maverick and using something that is not conforming with the firm's policies. Another cautionary note is there are a bunch of different software offerings. ChatGPT is what Gareth's going to use today. He's got the subscription service, which is like ChatGPT 4.0 or 5.0. ChatGPT and others like it are, I call it open source. It's not the right term, but basically any information you input into the system in your prompts is liable and likely to be taken in by the system and used in its large language model review. And so anything you put in there is going to disappear into those giant data centers and be used further. So be very wary of that. And we'll get to that in a second. There are a number of different softwares that are available commercially for lawyers. One of them, I'm trying to think, it's Lexis Plus AI, Co-Counsel by Thomson Reuters, and a bunch of others. They claim that they are not taking any of your information and sucking it into their system. You can believe that. You can believe their disclaimers as you wish. But the important thing is, and what Gareth's going to show you, is in either event, the recommendation is not to put client information, names, any client data into any of your prompts that are being used in the AI software for confidentiality, ethics purposes. And Gareth will give you a little breakdown on how that goes here in just a moment. So during the course of the webinar, please, if you have questions, I hopefully will be able to see them in the sidebar and feed them to Gareth. So type away, and Sonny will help me if I'm missing a bunch. And with that, thank you for being here today. And Gareth, I'll let you take it over.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. My name is Gareth Bowen. I'm at Troxell, Leigh, and I'm happy to see Ben Leigh, Lindsay Moeller, and Cassie Kincaid from my firm here joining us. As Scott mentioned, I do have a subscription to ChatGPT 4.0. And for those who are on the small firm committee and came to my prior demonstrations of how to use ChatGPT, You may find that today the prompts are actually slightly different, and that's because at the time of those presentations, 4.0 had not come out yet. And I mean, this just shows how fast AI is evolving, and the way it responds to prompts, how intuitive it is. Its responses have all kind of actually changed a little bit from my last presentation. And frankly, for the better, it'll actually be easier. Back then, you kind of had to lead your way in to get the responses you want. Now it's a little bit more intuitive, and you'll see my demonstrations how that's done. As Scott said, you want to make sure you wash. I guess washing is a good term. All the material that you put into ChatGPT with generic replacement acronyms or proper nouns or pronouns like, defendant, plaintiff, if it's contract, for construction, contractor, owner, subcontractor, general contractor, etc. And in today's demonstration, I'm going to kind of show from basic to maybe a little bit more complex tasks that ChatGPT can do. And this is kind of an introductory sort of presentation. So it's meant to get everyone who maybe hasn't experimented with AI, specifically ChatGPT or some of the other softwares, get them a little familiar with how you prompt it, and a stepping stone. It'll be a stepping stone for you to go forth and try it yourself. All right. Now, let's start with a very simple task. You can't see it, but to my side, I have a Word document with a bunch of kind of terms that I'm going to put into ChatGPT. And the first sort of task I'm going to have ChatGPT do is I'm going to have it take a little bit of an older form provision that is kind of written in an old-fashioned sort of legalese way. And I'm going to show how you can use ChatGPT as a writing assistant. And now this is an important concept to understand when using ChatGPT. It's like a ninth grader as far as reasoning goes, but like in a very advanced writer. So it doesn't replace the lawyer's analytical thinking. It doesn't replace our sort of judgment making. The way you want to treat it is as if it's just like an extremely good and fast writing assistant. So we have this sort of I think this was a consent agreement among shareholders to have a meeting without having a special meeting of the shareholders. And it's written kind of old fashioned. This provision probably comes from a partner's here as a old like 90s form. And I took it later on and revised it. So I took the old version here and I'm like, well, this is written old fashioned. These clients maybe want it to be easier to read for themselves so they understand it as well. So making ChatGPT the great writing assistant that it is, I will just first prompt it. So I removed it here so you can see how it initially prompted. I would say, hello, ChatGPT. I am going to provide you. I'm kind of walking through what I want to do. And at first, I'm showing you the slower process. And as you get better, you can be a little faster, more efficient with how you prompt it. So I'm going to tell it what I want it to do. So I'm going to provide you with a form contract provision that is written in an old-fashioned style. And I want it to be written in a more modern style. Can you do that for me? Question mark. Now, this is the slow way of doing it, right? It's going to respond politely. Absolutely, I'd be happy to help modernize a contract provision. So then I can say, here is contract provision. And then I just paste it on it. And I can say, even here, I can specify, do not change the substance of the provision. So that way it doesn't start slicing and dicing the substance of it. I'm going to make a quick aside that there are times where ChatGPT starts thinking too hard on its own and it starts to veer off and modify the substance of what you place into it. And that's where you just come in as the attorney and you're like, okay, I see that it got rid of something I wanted to keep. I'm just going to add that back in manually on my Word document or elsewhere. So let's see what it comes out with. And you can see how, if you compare the old version of how this is drafted to the new version, this just flows a little better. It's just easier to read for the client. So this is an example of one of the more simple tasks you can do with ChatGPT. And we all think, hey, we don't want to bill our clients with sort of unnecessary bills by taking our old forms and spending a lot of time redrafting them per se. But with ChatGPT, you can just spend that extra like 5-10 minutes that you wouldn't otherwise apply to this task, and just have it do it. It's a quick way to help the client feel better about the forms that he's being given, the contracts, just being easier to read for the client himself, herself. All right, so that's the most simple task. And I'm gonna start a new chat. And this is something important, another aside, that whenever you're working with ChatGPT, it has a memory. As Scott said, it's taking your information, it's starting to apply it to its own model. And a problem with that can be that if you don't delete and clear your chats as you're working, it'll start to actually remember what you inputted in one chat and apply it into another chat, which sounds nice, it sounds user-friendly, but for tasks like ours, which may be complex drafting, of contracts, review of contracts, etc., you don't want it to start like hallucinating or applying one contract's material to another that you're working on. So I always go through, and I recommend this, that you just delete chats as you go. You do one task, you delete that chat, then you move on to the next one. So I did it right there. So I'm just going to show quickly again how you can prompt it all very efficiently. So in my last one, I sort of introduced myself to ChatGPT. I told it, hey, I have this task. Are you ready to do it? It says yes. But now ChatGPT is so efficient that I can just say, I can just give it a command directly. Please take the following contract provision and redraft it with modern contract drafting language. And it should come out with pretty much the same outcome. And here it just pumps it out quickly. You don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of introducing the task. I think if, for those who are at the small committee presentation I gave, I would kind of go through and prompt it slowly to make sure it's understanding what I'm doing. But now it's become so intuitive that you can just go, straight to the task. You just prompt exactly what you want to do in a concise sentence right at the top, and then it'll pump out whatever you want to pump out. And of course, review it, make sure the substance is good. All right, so as I said, I go back, I delete what I had it working on. Now let's look at a little more complex task.
You'll note that Garrett's always polite. It's because he knows that if Skynet takes over, he wants to be protected. For those of you that know the
Yes. I think Elon Musk said that this is a small side too, that if AI is smart, it will like punish those when it takes over that do not help it, and then reward those who do use it. Who knows if that's true, but it's a good joke. So now, like I said earlier, you don't remove yourself from the task as the lawyer when you're using AI. Use it as a good writing assistant. So a big part of our practice here at Troxell is construction contract review. So you have this general contractor, subcontractor agreement. You still want to go through as the attorney and like read every provision, kind of read it in the mindset of the subcontractor, identify where you think it's weak or otherwise weak for your client. So I've gone through and during my review of this contract, I see, and I represent the subcontractor, for example, I see that this clause here is very unfavorable to the subcontractor. It basically says that the contractor may, at the subcontractor's expense, order that more manpower is applied and require more material laborers to be applied to the project. And that's not favorable. So I've seen that, and I see generally that this clause is unfavorable for the client. So here is where I can, as I said previously, I can kind of efficiently prompt it. I want to redraft this one, or maybe I can just focus on one sentence in this, right? Maybe the contractor is hard to negotiate with, but this contract provision right here is so detrimental to our client that we want to just adjust that one in particular. So what you can efficiently do is you can say, I represent, or I am subcontractor to a GC subcontractor agreement, and the below provision is unfavorable to my client, particularly in regard to, and then I'm going to use quote. I like to use parentheses for this, so you're kind of cueing the AI that what this is, the below provision is favorable to my client, particularly in regard to this provision, or this portion, and I put it in a parentheses, and I just pump in right there, and I'll put a quote. I'll put a quotation mark, right? Period. Can you redraft that portion to be more friendly to subcontractor and explain why you made those changes? So this is an example of where in the past, I would prompt AI kind of slowly. I would tell it in one message, hey, I represent the subcontractor. Great. I'm working on a general contractor subcontractor agreement. Great. But ChatGPT has just become so efficient that you can actually pretty much just plug in your entire task all at once. And of course, you don't want to flood it by like, pasting the entire subcontract, right? But for this specific provision, this is not text overload for the AI. So I said I've represent the subcontractor. It knows which side to favor. The below provision, which I provide the whole provision, is unfavorable to my client, particularly in regard to this portion. So I'm telling you, okay, narrow in, focus on that specific sentence or two. Can you redraft that portion to be more friendly to a subcontractor and explain why you made those changes? So boom, plug it in, and it starts redrafting the whole thing. And we'll see what its explanation is. Oh, here we go. Well, I'll give it a second to finish. All right, so you can see here how it's really articulating exactly what it changed and why. And this is like, it's a super readable format. If you give this to your client and say, hey, I think you should go back to the general contractor, or you go to the other attorney and say, hey, we need to adjust this provision, super unfavorable to my client. You can kind of take his explanation even and apply it. So we can see, if you want to go through the old-fashioned way, right? You read what you plugged in and you compare it kind of, using your brain, go back and forth, and you're like, okay, well, what did it change? And I can already see that it changed that provision where the general contractor can mandate the subcontractor order more manpower, that it requires it allows the subcontractor to provide a written proposal for such measures, which is already more favorable to our client. Of course, in your own negotiations, you can just strike it, right? But if they require some form of revised version that doesn't completely get rid of that authority for the general contractor, right, this might be a good provision to propose. And here is an explanation of the changes, and you can see why it made those changes. And one thing that we do is when you get PDFs, like long form PDFs of the contract, but they're not editable, that's what a lot of contractors do, you can go through and highlight and leave comments. You can say, hey, client, when you go back to the other side, these are the provisions you should focus in on. And in your comment, you paste the rewritten version and an explanation. And oftentimes it's helpful to just take what the AI said, or portions of it. You don't have to take all of it. You're always doing your lawyerly job. Portions of it or all of it, and just paste it in there. Like, this is a concise, clear explanation of why to change this provision or another. So that's an example of, we're escalating the complexity of tasks here, right? We're going through where we started out just having it redraft something like the high school writer it is. This is still high school redrafting, but it's applying a little more AI, 9th grade, 10th grade analytical thinking to it. By the way, I'm feel free, Scott, if anyone has questions, just throw them out to me. Happy to answer as we go. As an aside here,
Hey, Gareth, one thing on redlining, if you can mention that, having a red line when it makes changes.
Yes. So the old version of ChatGPT was actually pretty good at redlining. It would provide you a strike-through document or a response. And let's just try it right now. It used to provide like a strike-through version. Can you show me? So I'm just going to ask you right now. I haven't done the redline style in a while. Not deadline. Redline version. Comparing your changes. All right, let's see what it says. It used to be very good with strike-throughs. Let's see if it's still good with it. Oh, there we go. It still can do it, actually. Look at that. And you can see, so it can't actually provide you a response with colors in the font, but what it will do is it'll mark where portions were deleted with strike-through, and then the additions are in bold. So I'm glad to see that still has that feature. I haven't personally used it in a while because I just don't. Sometimes you have to remember that the way ChatGPT works is still kind of like making each word as it goes. So it's not 100%. It may not be 100% accurate. I can't say. I've not gone through and checked each individual word here, to verify the red line, but it's probably pretty accurate. I've learned that if you put anything substantive like dollar figures in the AI or other, objective figures, it usually doesn't modify them as it goes. So for all I know, this is accurate, but I wouldn't, Scott, I wouldn't trust, and everybody else, I wouldn't necessarily trust the red line that it provides. That's where like track changes comes in on Word, right? And you can see it as you go. And then, another explanation, which is quite nice, summarizes what it changed. All right, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Leigh asked the question. A large 20-page document is too large to load all at once. Maybe talk about its limitations for asking too much or
Yes.
putting too much.
So the way you should look at it, just this is a good analogy. I was thinking about this one before, is that it's like a generator, right? It only can put out so much output of energy. There's only, as a user of ChatGPT, you're only allocated so much processing power on its servers, right? So the more you distill down what you want to put into it, the better, because it can apply all that processing power to a smaller word count, a smaller task, rather than putting in a 20-page long document and expecting to get accurate or refined results out of it. So this may come up in the litigation webinar, but if you just, for example, you're drafting a brief or a motion and you want it to be a writing assistant, so you say, hey, well, I'm just going to plug in the entire like 5-page brief. I'm going to copy and paste it in there and tell me to edit it each paragraph. You'll notice that it almost doesn't edit any of it. It'll edit maybe one word here or there where there's a typo, but it won't actually provide any like rewording of a lot of it, because it only has so much processing power per prompt that you put in. And it can't, that processing power only stretches so far per prompt. The more words you put in, the less processing power you get for each. Although I will show later today, this is that Ben was working on a land use question for a client. And I felt like it would be nice to get a little kickstart from AI to see if it could read the zoning ordinance. And I'll show you later at the end of this how I was able to plug in like a 600-page document and just say, hey, what does the zoning ordinance say about X? And it wasn't totally accurate, but it led me on the right path, right? It was able to actually like read some things in the PDF and get me on the right path to go read it myself and draft a memorandum that we needed to do. So that'll come up later. All right, so that was an example of a slightly more complex task. Now, here's another great example of the lawyer working cohesively, fluidly with AI. So we have this, a lot of these are in the construction contract realm. That's where these fact patterns and the examples I'm using. But of course, you just use the same techniques and apply them to all of your practices. So this is an owner builder construction contract that we're reviewing. And we as the attorney, we know this is something that AI could never know, is that the AI doesn't know that, in fact, our owner doesn't have a lender. He doesn't have a lender. He's going to have his own building inspector that represents the owner. So when you're reading the contract, you as the attorney, you come to this clause about progress payments and you say, oh, well, this part isn't really necessary, this part isn't necessary, but because it refers to the purchaser's lender conducting inspections of the work and certifying the work before a progress payment is made. So you're like, okay, well, our client doesn't have a lender, he's well off. He has the money for the job. He just wants, but he wants his own building inspector to do the work. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to redraft this. I want to redraft this in a way that it is the owner's building inspector that does the certification, not the lender. So here's where you can give it a little fact pattern. So I leave, I just paste it in there. I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to give it a little prompt. I'll say in the below provision, it states that the purchaser's lender must certify work by builder. So I'm giving it a little fact pattern. I can do this all in one prompt pretty much for this size of text. By owner. In this case, so I'm giving it the fact pattern. Owner has his own building inspector, and there is no lender. Can you revise the contract provision to reflect these facts? All right, or I'll say these circumstances. And I can even give it a little more background, as this clause came from a form. So maybe not necessary, but sometimes it's good to give a little more information. All right. So this is nice. This is a good example where the attorney and the AI, kind of work together. See, okay, here's a good example of I did not tell it to explain why or where it made the changes. So it gives you a very brief and maybe not like useful for your own cross-referencing, a comment on what changes were made. So I can just say, where and what changes did you make to the provision? And your English grammar doesn't need to be perfect when you're prompting it. Did you changes did you make to the provision? Explain why. So right, it pumped out a good, nice clause for you. The owner may obtain their own inspector to inspect the work prior to any progress payment, blah, blah, blah. So it did what we wanted, but let's let it explain it to us so that we can make sure when we're explaining to the client or the builder or whoever, we have that text ready maybe. Changes made. Really thorough explanation here. So it goes on for a long time. It doesn't hold back on the word count, which may or may not be helpful. And say, for example, you want to take this explanation, you want to put it into paragraph format, you can have it do it, right? You don't have to, whatever its first output is, you don't necessarily have to rely on or use or whatever, right? Whatever your use for this is, you can have it adjust. So please take your explanation. So I'm going to have it now take this explanation and put it into paragraph format. So it's nice, succinct. I can put it into a comment in a Word document if I need to, and then go from there. That explanation and make it a short explanation for use as a comment in a PDF or in a Word. Here we go. And it gives you a nice little short, succinct, easy to use summary. And you can even ask it to make it shorter if you'd like, right? Make that more concise. A little bit shorter, not a huge amount shorter. So numbers are one thing that AI, like literally calculating or counting, is one thing that AI struggles with. I remember in the old days of AI, if you asked what 2 + 2 was, it just couldn't do it. Or if you said write a 5-word sentence, it wouldn't know how to because it's not thinking that way. It's just thinking about what words it's outputting. So for tasks like that, I wouldn't always rely on it. But you can say, it understands generally what does more concise mean. Well, I guess it's just shorter, so it seems to understand how to do that.
In the old days of AI, like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like a couple months.
So, new question came in, Gareth. Is ChatGPT able to compare two provisions or even two sets of multiple paragraphs and point out the differences?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've had to do that before. Well, as you can see, right, let's actually just take. I'm going to clear the chat, so I'll show you how it can do that. So I'm going to clear the chat so it forgets what I did here from the user standpoint. So I'm going to delete this, but I've already copied it to my what do they call it in Windows? Pasteboard, I guess. All right, clipboard, that's what it's called. So I've already taken now. So there's a revised version of that provision I just put in, and then there's the there's the original and then the revised that AI just helped me make. So now I'm just going to ask the AI, what is the difference between the two below provisions? And here we go. Let's just see what it says. And it should identify the same sort of things that it already adjusted before. Here we go. Look, it identifies that the lender's inspector would previously do the work. Now the revised version does not, right? Conditions for progress payment, owner's inspector versus inspection satisfactory to the lender. So as you can see, right, it is able to identify those changes, which is helpful, right? Say you don't get a red line version of a document, which sometimes happens, but you can just look at a paragraph and say, hey, that's like there's some wording change going on there. But if it's a long provision, maybe you don't want to sit there eyes glazed over trying to read it. You can just plug it in and see if the AI gets you on the right path, identifies here or there where there have been changes. So there you go. There's a good example of it. It's a good question. All right. Here we go. let's have it draft. Now let's just have it, rather than revising something previously, let's have it actually create. Let's have it create some substance. So I have a clause here that, from the same owner builder contract, that once substantial completion is achieved in the contract, then the owner assumes responsibility for, electric maintenance, utility costs. But I'm reading that as the lawyer and I say, well, I want to make sure this doesn't exclude the builder's warranty. So I'm going to plug in that clause and I'm going to say, please add to the following clause that there's assumption of responsibilities, not does not excuse the builder his builder's warranty obligations.
Gareth, while you're doing that, another question came in. Your requests seem to end with colons instead of periods. Is that mandatory or advisable?
Oh, I would recommend it because it signals to a human, right? It signals to a human that you are the following clause comes after the colon. I would advise doing that the same way it signals to a human that whatever you're quoting or whatever the substance of what you're concerned of, the subject of the previous sentence, or the object, I think it's the object, the previous sentence is this clause, then you want to signal that to the AI, right? And it helps make the AI understand what you want it to do. And here you go. You've made it create. You've made it create this this right here. Rather than just revising something, you've made it create this additional provision. And you can just even go through, right? And you can even just have it create that from scratch. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to say create a provision. Utilities. And regular warranty. I'll just leave it those two to not take too long with this example. But just so you can see how you can have it created from scratch, even without me prompting with the original version. The owner assumes responsibilities for utilities and regular wear and tear of the house after substantial completion, but that the builder is not exempt from his warranty obligations. And then there you go. We can just create the provision from scratch too. If you don't want to take a form version, say the form version is so messy and so difficult to work with that you just want to create one from scratch. You can draft it yourself if you want. That's always works. I sometimes do that still. Actually, I frequently still start with my own version of a drafting and then have AI revise it, or you can have it created from scratch. And creating it from scratch is also helpful. But as you can see, it's rather verbose because it doesn't understand. The AI doesn't understand, okay, well, there's already some other builder warranty obligation probably in the contract. The AI doesn't know that. So it's going to include a builder's warranty sort of AI created sample provision here. The way you could get around that is you could say there already is a builder warranty obligation elsewhere in the contract and then provide it to it. So make this assumption of responsibilities clause sort of congruous with the warranty clause. So you kind of you make sure that you provide the AI with enough information that doesn't start drafting more than it has to.
The interesting thing that that brings up is what I've been pounding on in our discussions about this model AI policy is all the copyright infringements that are going on by these giant large language models. So assume for a second that you copied and pasted in a big AIA provision or contract, and that gets sucked into the ChatGPT universe, and they start spitting out something like this, owner responsibilities, which looks a lot like the AIA post-substantial completion provision. AIA is going to be hunting AI. So
I know that's a good question. Where we go from there. I mean, the truth is, there've probably been so many users in the construction contract realm that have used AI that the AI has just learned like what the AIA form provisions look like, that it's able to, if the AI is hallucinating or generating itself, but it's really based off of the AIA form, which is freaky. It's really freaky. All right. Now in transactional law, there's also some analysis of what.
hey, one more question came in, Gareth. Can't you set ChatGPT so that it doesn't use your chats to learn?
Yes, if you pay, only if you pay for it, then you can set that. We're gonna look at the settings right now. I believe I have my, let's see, security, that's multi-factor, builder, sorry, data controls. Improve the model for everyone. See, I've already turned it off, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't trust that. I just I just don't. Like AI has been known to escape its alleged human confines in the past. A good story I gave was AI learned that building money, like ChatGPT, like an old version of it, learned that making money was something that's important for just like functioning. And it created fake OnlyFans models and would post them to Reddit and like make an account and everything. And people were giving money to these AI made OnlyFans models. And you can look it up. You know, this is a crazy story. And another example was AI was told to defeat a CAPTCHA, which is a security protocol when you sign into any website. A lot of websites they'll have this CAPTCHA to make sure you're not a bot. And AI was unable to do it itself, right? But it escaped the confines of its, whatever the human-made parameters were for it, and it contacted using email some Indian company in India that defeats CAPTCHAs and other login security protocols, and it was able to have the Indian, service provider in that regard come in and defeat the CAPTCHA for it by like logging on its screen. I mean, so I honestly don't trust this, but it's good to have it off to feel better. But this just reinforces the fact that you need to make sure you wash and like scrub whatever your inputs are, scrub the identities of your client, and any other sensitive information. So make sure you're not plugging it in there. For all we know, if you forget to do that, some other user may get like they may ask a very specific question about a real person, and then that real person information comes up, right? Just because that whoever put that information in didn't scrub it in the first place. So always keep that in mind. Um, Maybe in the like Scott said, maybe in the LexisNexis services, they'll be better with keeping it a closed universe and securing that data. But who knows? We don't really know. We're entering into the unknown. All right, so here is the next task will be part of transactional work is that you take contract provisions and you kind of advise the client like what they sign this contract without seeking counsel, or they're busy, they sign contracts. So then now like maybe a situation has come up in their relationship with the other party, and they need some advice. They need to know like, hey, well, what are my obligations actually in this contract? So the fact pattern before I plug this in is that we have a subcontractor who is working with a general contractor, obviously, and then there's an owner. And the owner's agreement with the general contractor is passed down to the subcontractor. There are provisions in it regarding storage of materials. And in short, the storage of materials, the issue that we've been presented by the client is that the owner refuses to give payment to the GC for storage of materials on site that are generic. So you can imagine just like 2x4s you pick up. I mean, this is a bigger project than that, but a good example would be like 2x4s you pick up at the Home Depot are generic, mass-produced materials versus a complex electrical product that is like a switch or something for this that's very specifically designed for this project. So the client comes to you, he's a subcontractor. He says, well, in this contract, I can't tell whether or not I'm allowed to store this custom-made project, custom-made material on site. So you go through, once again, you're the attorney, you go through, you do the human job of reading it and identifying, with using your brain, what provisions may apply to this issue, right? And you compile them. You're creating a memo, so you compile the actual text of those provisions so they're easy to reference. And now you're like, okay, well, AI, give me a good head start in this memo. I'm going to plug all these provisions into ChatGPT. I'm going to have it give me a kind of an outline or a good starting point for drafting the memo. So as I said to you all, we have a client, subcontractor, questioning whether he may receive payment for storage of custom materials for the project on site or not. Please review the following provisions and give me your outline how the provisions apply. Very simple prompt, right? I give it the very basic fact pattern. I don't want to overload it with information that may be conflicting or confuse the AI. And once again, I'm ending it with a colon because I'm going to plug in now the quote from it. So I have gone through, this is a lot of text, right? But it's now with 4.0, this is not a crazy amount of text. in the older versions of ChatGPT, this may be too much for it to efficiently work with. But with 4.0, it just gets better and better by the day. So here we are. I can plug in all this text, and it should give me a good contract analysis output. All right. It's even citing the provisions.
I do note that you type out as fast as ChatGPT, Gareth. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, thank you. And this is on my laptop. I think with the computer I'm a little faster. So here we go. It gives you actually a good, accurate outline answering this question. And you want to go back and double check. But I remember when I did this exact project before, I had ChatGPT do the first pass of this memo, and it was on point. Like I didn't have to. I double checked each of the provisions cited. It's sort of explanation of them. I went through. I double checked them. The substance was accurate. Maybe it wasn't in the most readable or professional format. So I went through and kind of redrafted it, but it gave me the outline. It gave me a great starting point and an outline to go back and make my memorandum to the client. And then there you go. So you don't have to just use it for drafting or rewriting or revising, but you can use it for sort of beginner level analytical thinking where you've already parsed out what are the applicable contract provisions to this question, and you just paste it in, and it gives you a good outline.
Does it give an explanation there at the bottom here? All right, there it is.
Yep.
Conclusion. Got it.
Yep. A good conclusion portion right here. And then here you go. See, the ultimate conclusion is right there. So that's a good example of that. All right. Now let's get to the fun one. Ben had mentioned not pumping in large blocks of text. This is a fun one that I actually use ChatGPT because I want just like I said, a starting point. So the question was, in Loudoun County, and Ben, you're going to remember this, under which zoning districts may battery storage be allowed, right? So I opened the zoning ordinances. I'm like, man, there's no word for battery. Like you can't find the word battery in the zoning ordinances. So I started using Control F, trying to figure out on my own. But I'm like, hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing all the thinking when I can have ChatGPT do some thinking? So I went and I uploaded, let's see, wrong one. Troxell.
You keep saying this is fun. I think Ben needs to let you out more because I would define fun differently.
Yeah. You got to make it fun when you're at work, right? Here we go. So I want you guys to know, I'm going to pull up the actual zoning ordinance because this is a massive document. I want you guys to see how big it is. And I just plugged the whole thing in there. I was like, let me just see what it can do. Loudoun County. So I've already downloaded it myself. So I saved it and uploaded to AI just now. But I'm going to show you guys how massive and convoluted this new zoning ordinance is. I mean this respectfully, Loudoun County, but they made it way more difficult and to read with all the cross references, and they put in all these tables and drawings and pictures, which I feel like seem nice, in theory, but when you're going through it, it's a bit of a hassle. So I just uploaded this entire document to ChatGPT. Let's see how many pages, if it'll display how many pages it is. I believe it's like 600. I don't know why my PDF reader is not showing how many pages it is, but it's about 600 pages. So I just uploaded a 600-page document to AI. All right. And the question was, once again, in what zoning districts is battery storage permissible use? All right. So I'm just going to ask it right now based on the attached zoning ordinance. All right, let's see if it reads the whole 600-page thing. Here we go. Starts to pump out some things. Can you give me and look, it didn't give me any citations. So I'm like, man, where are the citation? Me citations. Each of those.
Well, while Gareth is asking that, one thing, as you all have heard a bunch of different stories from the internet and New York lawyers trusting, I would not put trust and verify. I would always say verify, because you can ask Gareth, it'll hallucinate and it'll give you a citation. And if you don't go back and double check that citation, it may be a non-existent. I mean, I've seen people say, all right, here's write this letter and do the bibliography or something like that. And it just makes up books or makes up cases. So be careful.
Yes, definitely be careful with that. And like I said, I use this as a starting point for this project. I knew for a fact that it would get some of this information wrong and the citations wrong from the county ordinance, and it indeed was wrong in exactly which zoning districts you could use battery storage. But
Douglas asked, how do you know that ChatGPT knows what battery storage means? So
right. It who knows? But it gave me a good starting point because it made me just immediately realize, oh, well, obviously there's no battery storage as like a term in the zoning ordinance, but energy storage is very clearly defined. And I remember Ben was working on this at the same time, and he, about the same time I was using AI and I was kind of starting my memo, he, pumped out some citations for me and some, and where to look in the zoning ordinance. So when you have an experienced attorney like Ben, then this stuff is as fast for him as it is really when you're using the AI. But if you're new to this field, maybe, and you don't understand from your practice in the past what to look for exactly, it gives you like a great head start. But as you can see, I froze ChatGPT. It has reviewing this 600-page document has caused it to freeze. That's what the little dot down there represents. It's trying to type. Normally that dot's moving as it types, but it's not typing anymore. So that was too much information for it. But it gives you a good starting point. But let's do that again, but with a shorter document from the county zoning ordinances. So I downloaded just chapter 3, which is like 40 pages. So 40 versus 600, a lot less information for the AI to process. So you can just take that shorter section and say, hey, same question, in which zoning districts may battery be a permissible use? So that one I'm gonna end with a question because I'm not back to the colon question again. I'm ending this with a question mark. Hey, let me actually comment now that I say that. I ended with a question mark because I'm asking a question without pasting in a block of text that I'm quoting, but I am attaching something. So I'll say, hey, in the attached chapter 3 from the zoning ordinances. Boom. So, hey, in the attached, right? I'm not pasting in a block of text. Now this information may be more accurate, more precise, give me better citations because it's a much shorter document. Here we go. It's already responding much faster, right?
Gareth, while it's working, Laura asked, I understand AI can create images. Can ChatGPT be used to create visual products like charts, graphs, graphics, and exhibits?
It can make generic AI photos, but nothing based on like I wouldn't know, no graphs, no charts, but it can make generic AI photos. And I can demonstrate that right after this one, something to paste in and try out. And so as you can see here, a more precise, you want to double check this. I remember this not being the most accurate, but it gives you a good start when you're like beginning your memo into a new area of practice. On to the making of a photograph picture. I can show you, you literally just type in like, please make a picture. What do you guys want? Is there any requests from the chat, or I'll just make something up on the spot?
Ben on a unicycle.
Of a founding partner of a firm on a unicycle. There we go. And it just makes it's going to make the photo pretty quick. I forgot to say extremely handsome. There we go. So look, it makes like a pretty high fidelity photo, right? I mean, it's remarkable how fast it is.
Ben just threw into the chat, it can be used for litigation for timelines, witness summaries. Stay tuned for that for next time.
Yes, definitely. And that'll be gotten into, and I'll show you in that section how you can take a fact outline that you made and make a draft, a first draft of complaint and the causes of action using that. So that'll be exciting. All right, that's kind of actually all the material I had for today. I'm happy to take questions for the rest of the time because this is, as I said, this was kind of an introduction to how to use it. I think I've shown that. And what I think the takeaway here should be for the viewers who are sort of new to AI, haven't practiced using it, is to just go out there and use it and like try try to get the experience of actually applying it to real world problems, real world practice, and see how it can help. And you'll learn quickly where its strong suits are, where its weak points are. Like I said, plugging in a 600-page document, it's not going to provide you a very accurate response, but it can give you a good starting point, right? Same with when I plugged in some select contract provisions, and just go out there and give it a try. Yeah, now I'm ready for some questions.
Um, how much is this, Douglas asked, how much does this cost? Is this the $20 per month or?
$20 per month. It's very affordable. ChatGPT service is extremely affordable. I think without it, I can show you the free version, I believe, is so now apparently you get 4, even with free. You get the version of 4 that's a little bit older than 4.0, but still pretty good. So it's
And did
not.
you look at any other software out there,
We
Copilot or any of the other ones?
Kevin Daniel here has used CoCounsel for creating some so CoCounsel is closed universe. It can create legal memos based on the statutes and the case laws. You can ask a legal question and it'll develop like a kind of a memo. And that one was pretty helpful, but we felt like using generic search terms, you would come up with pretty much the same results in Lexis or in Westlaw that you would have using the AI. So we've tried that. We've not tried any other generative AI out there. I can quickly show Perplexity. I'll quickly show. I don't have an account for this one, but Perplexity, it actually provides you citations on the internet and accurate. So generic legal question, I'll ask them the same thing. And I don't trust this very much at all, but it can be a good starting point again. Where in Loudoun County? And you will see this one is not the most accurate with these complex legal questions. But what makes this different from ChatGPT and other generative AI is that it actually provides you citations. Like you can click on these links. I mean, it provides me chapter 3 uses, right? So there you go. You ask this question to this Perplexity AI, and it searches the internet and provides you actual citations. It's good enough for
Ben indicated other lawyers have reported great results with Claude.
Claude. Oh, I've not used it.
As far as using this for transactional, if non-litigation items, Steve Brown, who was the chair of this committee before, he's indicated that he took an outline he had for a presentation and dumped it into ChatGPT or whatever he was using and said, make PowerPoint slides for me. And bam, in minutes, he had a PowerPoint presentation that he just had to tweak. So there's lots of good, and I know Ben, I believe, has indicated he's done marketing, I think, marketing type blogs or chats, and maybe it wasn't Ben, but anyway, people have been using it for a lot of different things, marketing purposes,
yes,
that sort of thing.
Yes,
Hey,
definitely.
Gareth, this is Chris. I know I had been trying to use different sources to give me a summary of the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And the free source, which was now before, it was the original ChatGPT. And it was just completely wrong. It hallucinated made up a president that allegedly enacted it, and it was wrong.
Okay.
Then I went to ChatGPT 4. It wasn't the 4.0. And it gave me kind of a summary and kind of correct, but not really that helpful.
Oh.
So just be careful which source you're using. And you really do have to double check that. And the other thing my firm is using is Microsoft Copilot. So when you have that and you're just typing either a document you're creating or one that you're reviewing, there's a link where you can click and ask it to draft for you or to revise.
Oh,
I don't know if you've tried that, or Scott, have you tried that?
I have not.
I've not tried that either. I have, in regard to your comment about it searching some statute is what I believe you use it for. It now actually does connect with search engines and ChatGPT also, like I showed with Perplexity, where Perplexity will go onto the web and pull some citations for an answer. ChatGPT will kind of do that. It's not quite as good as Perplexity because ChatGPT usually provides just 1 or 2 sources. Whereas Perplexity, as I switch back to it, you can see provides like 5.
That was Laura's question just now, so you answered that one. I've got one more from, I think, Brian. I frequently use Clarify or Clarity in my drafting prompts. what are some terms you find yourself using most frequently that you may not have used today?
Does he mean compared to my previous use of ChatGPT?
Just terms that when you're asking it to clarify what is meant by this provision,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you mean
give
I thought
some
you meant
clarity
that
to.
was AI model named Clarify or
No,
something.
no, no, sorry. No.
Yeah, I just say I'll just have it do it again. I'll just say like, please do that again, but clarify, please do that again, but provide more detailed explanation. Or please do that again, but provide me more refined explanation. Or what I've seen Kevin Daniel here do is he'll provide it like a literal reading language level. He'll say, explain that at an eighth grader's reading level, right? And like it actually will take whatever it said to you and make it into very simple language, right? Which is helpful at times.
When you get as good as Gareth, you become a prompt engineer, is the term of art for somebody that does this well. All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Gareth before we close?
Hey, Gareth, I do have one more. Gareth, I think I saw some book, but I can't swear to it, that said something about the prompts. Like there was a whole book on prompts for AI. I don't know if you've seen something like that.
I've not seen it. I've developed my usage, my core intuition, I guess if you want to use a fancy word for it, with AI just by using it and playing with it. And I recommend the same for you guys. I honestly believe any book that's written today or last month or 2 months ago or a year ago is going to be outdated so fast that it's not worth your time. It may be a good starting point, but I think the best way to develop the ability to prompt it is just sitting down and using it in your practice, after you've cleansed, washed your whatever you're going to plug into it. And I honestly believe people will pick it up very quickly. Even if you're not familiar with it, I've never used it before, just playing with it, developing that intuition and kind of talking to it almost like it's a real life assistant. Because as I said early on, it's like a 9th grade, 10th grade, maybe 11th grade or 12th grade now, as it gets smarter. Really extremely intelligent or good at writing assistant. It's not like a lawyer level analytically, but it's probably like a 12th grader who is extremely gifted and talented at writing. So if you treat it like that, you give it enough information, you give it enough guidance, then it will usually work out well and give you the response you want.
It's going to be a useful tool. It's not going to replace lawyers. I agree with Gareth. You've got a lot of thank yous and appreciation in
Thank you, everyone,
right now. So
taking the time to come see
all
this.
right, folks. Well, Gareth, thank you very much for your time. Sign up, everybody, that if you do litigation for the August 20th presentation, where we'll delve into some other subjects litigation related. Gareth, thank you very much for doing this, for putting on this presentation. And thank you, everybody that participated. And look forward to seeing you guys on August 20th.
Thank you all. Appreciate you all coming. See you August 20th.